Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, big Supreme Court ruling. Biden administration not very happy about it, kind of curbing the authority of the Environmental Protection Agency. Talk a little bit about what went down.
The Supreme Court basically dealt a really big blow to the Biden administration, effectively limiting the EPA's ability to curb greenhouse gas emissions from, some of the major carbon emissions plants. This effectively deals a big blow in its goals to reach to decarbonize, the greenhouse gas sector by 2035.
So this was a big win for some of the coal-producing fossil fuel states, and not such a big win for the Biden administration as they try to pursue their green agenda.
Yes, and not a win for a lot of Democrats as well, who came out pretty strongly, in the hours after the ruling, just criticizing the Supreme Court's decision, by the 6-3 conservative majority, and saying that, short of or in wake of this decision, they are going to just be forced to act through legislative measures, if anything.
Right, and so obviously the Supreme Court took a different reading of the Clean Air Act than a lot of these Democrats do. Democrats now are probably going to be challenged to revise the law or pass some other legislation that the Supreme Court would have to interpret differently, coming on the heels of a lot of conservative Supreme Court decisions. So a lot of the rank and file Democrats in Congress are pretty mad about this.
Yes, and as we've, seen in months past, they have not had great success in delivering a lot of things across the finish line legislatively. So it is unlikely, I think, that they will be able to make much progress on, anything on the legislative front here as well. So they feel pretty stymied, I think, or at least what I've been told, feel pretty stymied and feel just pretty discouraged, I think, in their efforts to achieve some of Biden's clean energy goals.
So now President Biden is at least encouraged with some of the things he's been able to do to sanction Russia, and he's had some tough words not only for Vladimir Putin, but maybe for some American consumers who are tired of high prices at the pump. What has he had to say about how long we might have to pay higher prices in order to deter Russian aggression, to penalize Russian aggression?
Yes, so he spoke on the heels of his Europe trip. He met with G7 leaders, met with NATO. Basically, at the end of all that, he came out and told consumers, we're going to have these high prices, we're going to pay these premiums as long as it takes to counter Putin's aggression and to really stop his invasion of Ukraine, stop that war. So really acknowledging I think in his starkest terms yet, that there is no end in sight for the foreseeable future for gas prices. He did point to one possible area that could be a glimmer of hope for some, which is a Russian oil price cap.
Right, and you've talked to people who are experts in that and advocating for that. That would help Russia no longer profit as much from its oil sales. Talk a little bit about that.
That's the aim. So it's a first of its kind effort, never been tested before, but so it's interesting and unclear if it might have that intended effect. But yes, if successful, it would target Russia's revenue through importers and shipping of Russian crude exports, and this would. I think we've seen with Russian sanctions and oil bans, things like that, they've actually had sort of a reverse effect. They've caused oil prices to just go through the roof, meaning that despite the loss in exports, Russia's net revenue still continues to be higher than it was before the war, which is pretty crazy. So this is kind of economists and the G7's answer, or proposed answer, to, targeting Russia, punishing Putin where it hurts, and hopefully limiting revenue from oil.
Because it's got to be a pretty tough message for Biden to deliver. That on the one hand, consumers are going to have to pay more, prices are going to stay high. This is Putin's price hike, but Putin's still making money from oil even as Americans are paying higher gas prices.
Putin's making more money from oil than he was at the same point last year, and he's actually making. If you actually look at the breakdown of payouts from EU countries, NATO countries, it's not just India, China, other buyers, but there's actually he's actually making more from the West as well. And that's a pretty painful thing, I think, for the West to acknowledge. And so they're really trying to think of new ways that to punish Putin, to punish Russia, but also without sending inflation even further through the roof.
Right, because we don't want it to be Putin's profit hike.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you.
You can read Breanne's coverage and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.